Now that it's graduation season and wedding season, we are seeing some more of those balloon releases as a way to celebrate.
But those balloons are causing big problems for wildlife along the Connecticut shoreline.
You could accept this compromise, what Joe Manchin laid out, even if voter ID was part of it.
That's one of the fallacies of Republican talking points that has been deeply disturbing. No one has ever objected to having to prove who you are to vote. It's been part of our nation's history.
I have never seen a president, covering the last 4 of them, who is so protected by his aides in terms of often not wanting him to answer some questions.
I believe that white people are born into not being human.
I am a colonizer, and I don't expect anyone to trust me when I'm wearing this skin color. I'm wearing the enemy's uniform. People who look like me have hurt everyone who doesn't for hundreds of years.
Okay. That's where we are.
Happy vacation, Tom.
Thank you very much. So we are on if you haven't heard the news by now, we're in a little a mini vacation, just checking out, popping around New England a little bit, and it's been a hectic jaunt, and it was made official today. This here for us is Thursday, that I will be joining WTIC News Talk 1080 in Hartford, Connecticut, starting Monday. Which, for you, if you're exclusively a podcast listener, won't mean much to you because nothing's going to change. And but there you go. So I'm getting a radio gig, and I'm thrilled to join the team there. And it starts Monday. All sorts of stuff going on. Connecticut's a great state for local stories. There's just the right amount of cynicism, right amount of corruption in politics, very colorful personalities, and the people are just very creative and New Englandy and real and very funny and thoughtful, and so there's that. So we are now clandestinely somewhere in Connecticut by the shoreline ourselves, as a matter of fact. Here, have not seen any, what's it called? Xylon balloons? What are those?
Mylar balloons.
Mylar balloons. You
Like
sound soft to you? Or do you sound okay?
Maybe a tiny bit soft. You can turn me up.
I don't know. Say check 1 2.
Check 1 2. Check 1 2.
You're a little soft.
So we can turn me up. Oh, there I am. Wow.
That's something wrong with Channel 2 Alice. We're gonna have to look into maybe
some new equipment.
New equipment, yeah.
Wow.
This is happening.
So this is our remote broadcast from our hotel room from an undisclosed location in Connecticut. So if we look a little different than usual, we are.
This is an impossible, ridiculous task right now. There are 3
Our
kids,
children
4
are
kids.
locked in the hotel bathroom.
They're not locked in. They've put themselves in there. Although they could have locked themselves in. And we are asking for trouble here trying to get this done. And here go. Okay, so they've come out. And remember, guys, if you can be quiet and behave, then there will be room service dessert. Okay, and they're just looking forward to using the pool. So that's where they are. So where should we start? We should start probably, since the Secretary of Education was everywhere over the last few days, excited and giddy about critical race theory being taught in schools. Not only that, but also happy about Title IX protections for trans people, which is really, I got to tell you, if you are a woman, how many times do you want to be devalued? Can you imagine that? These Title IX protections, sorry, among other things, provide that women shall be allowed and not impeded in education, the ability to get an education in school. And so it's almost like a school equality act. And these are the things that they provide for, the sports team is for guys, it's for girls. These are the things that for conduct wise, if women, the harassment is not allowed, etc., for women, and aggressive sexual pursuit is not allowed. In other words, it's a guys be cool while we try to give the women the opportunity to learn something. I think it was a Nixon era thing, wasn't it? The Title IX. I think it was.
Sounds plausible. I don't know.
So So anyway, it was also used. It was the auspices for Obama writing the Dear Colleague letters that set up these tribunals that would toss men for being accused of sexual assault, where in many cases there was none. There were no witnesses allowed. Sometimes the guys weren't even allowed to know what the charges were. Depending, it was very arbitrary tribunals. And Trump rescinded this stuff. Biden has promised to put it back in. Maybe they have already. But the problem was, among other things, that of course these men's lives were being ruined, but they were suing the hell out of schools and winning. These guys whose lives were being ruined. But now Title IX protection for trans people. So what if that means?
That means bathrooms, locker rooms, sports, all of the above.
So a trans woman. Yes, a trans woman, who is a guy who is assumed the role of a woman, now has all the same protections as a woman, an actual woman.
Right.
And so we've made a decision here that women need special protections.
And even more protections because, I don't think there's protections in the law that you can't call a woman he, just as a joke, but you can't call a trans woman he as a joke.
Interesting. Okay. Okay. But at the same time,
I could call you a girl all day long and Title IX wouldn't come protect you.
Right.
But a trans man, if I call a trans man a girl, then that's harassment and bigotry and terrible.
Well, can a trans man claim to be experiencing, physical symptoms that women routinely experience just for the fact of being a woman? Even though biologically it's impossible.
You mean like a period? Right?
Yeah, sure.
So you mean a trans woman?
Yes.
So I've seen trans women claim that they do because they're on hormone therapy. They can't get an actual period, obviously, but they say that once a month they get grumpy and feel cramps. So it's the same. Which, as a woman, is annoying.
You're right. I would assume so. And once again, so let's go back to sports then. Just as women are allowed to and encouraged to play sports because they're given the same sports as men.
Right.
Now, men who identify as women would be able to be on those sports teams.
Right.
The women's sports teams with all the protections, or more than all of the protections, as you were saying.
Yeah.
Okay. And what about college admissions?
Yep, and scholarships and all that stuff. The school can now count, if they're not getting enough women in computer engineering, they can get trans women and count that as having enough women in computer engineering now. So that counts across the board. And colleges do use quotas for groups. So,
right.
So, we've talked before about, they're not being pieces of the pie, that just because one person succeeds in life doesn't mean somebody else isn't going to. But in college, it does mean that because there are a limited number of spots and, and they actually do have quotas of how many people of a certain group they can fill. So if you claim to be part of a new group, it's like Liz Warren claiming to be Native American on her admissions, she took a spot and that they got to claim was a diversity spot because they said we brought in a Native American.
Well, okay. So here we go. And this is the kind of thing that people on the left say, the conservatives are worried about men who identify as women, as if that has anything to do with their day. Well, it absolutely does. It absolutely is an existential problem. It's a real and serious problem.
Yeah, it's been a problem
And-
in Connecticut, in
Yes.
the high school girls track in Connecticut, for sure.
So, but this is all part of us now, since the goal is the good feels about things, and to get there, if you have to create out of thin air a narrative, then that's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. All about equity and justice and feeling good about it. And, we jump from, what does it hurt you to just use the right name for somebody? It doesn't hurt you, and it makes them feel better, and then they won't kill themselves. And so that's not a problem. It's no skin off your nose to, just make somebody feel good by calling them what they asked to be called. Straight to, like, we have to count men as the top women's finishers in the marathon. Like, we moved really fast from one end to the other. I mean, but really, like, I don't see why, if you're going to run things that way, like, why bother having women's sports as a category at all? Because every argument you can make for why trans women should be allowed to play in women's sports, you can also make to just have one category. They always say, like, well, some girls are naturally taller or faster or more muscular than other girls. Right. So what's the difference? It's just, one person, everybody's an individual. We absolutely can't see any group differences at all. There's no difference. And then, and then they turn around and why bother still having these categories?
So what is the role of women in the woke utopia? No, just what is it? What is the reason to be?
I mean, I tend to think if you're trying to eliminate gender in general, like, we always joke about, like, oh, I don't see colors. Like, the left wants to be like, oh, we don't see gender. They can't see it. It's not there. It's just an imaginary social category. So, but in that universe, like, where does that leave women, right? Like, if you enter a universe where in sports you don't see gender anymore, then women are just worse at all the sports. Right.
And but also then you've torpedoed the sport. The credibility of the sport is gone. Wherein it no longer is the sport.
Right.
It's not that sport anymore. If you allow trans women to compete against women, then it's a men's sport.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're going to win.
Or it's an everybody's
sport. So that's
sport,
gone.
Right? Like,
but what's crazy is that there's money to be made in these sports. There are sponsors and this and that for all this stuff. Like, your sister was a really big field hockey player.
Right.
Got a scholarship. And, like, they're sponsored. All of their equipment is sponsored, etc. The scholarship was great for her. But so if you now put a bunch of dudes on the team, then
they get the scholarships, of which the school has a limited supply.
Right. And if there are injuries, because field hockey can be tough to the women, well, then that's just a woman injuring a woman. Even though the woman that injured the woman was named Brad a year ago, and it was 6'6". So it's the amount of, and you probably haven't known this, but I've been studying the French Revolution recently. The amount of sheer spinelessness of anybody to stand up, any sponsor, any league or administration, or anybody to stand up and say, guys, I'm as progressive as anybody else here, but what are we doing here with this?
Right. Anybody who's involved in sports knows that this is true. They can look at the boys' track times versus the girls' track times. They can look at the boys' swimming times versus the girls' swimming times. They can watch an NBA game and watch a WNBA game, and everybody knows. And I mean, it extends to all sports. Men can do jumps in figure skating that women cannot do. That they just physically cannot do. And men can do things in gymnastics that women cannot do.
Right.
And diving and everything else. It's so when you start putting the categories together, then men are just always going to win them.
Okay. And that's irrefutable. But back to the idea that it destroys the game, the whole institution. It does. And it's the same thing as Victoria's Secret getting rid of the angels models and swapping in Megan Rapinoe and other people.
Well, right, and I assume
Megan Rapinoe, who's not as beautiful as an angel, and who's a lesbian, and who's also just a total jerk, by the way, who's just a jerk. I've never seen her not be a jerk. The model of Victoria's Secret is enticement.
right.
And this is sex. This
Right.
is romance. This is the idea is
The
the
being
brand
sexy.
is beautiful and lovely and feminine and sexual in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's embodied perfectly by these gorgeous women
Right.
who are all of those things. And it's such a pure and perfect thing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And like even the in-store experience is a
Right.
perfect thing. Especially if you're a guy consumer, and I've told the story again and again, as a young guy when I was 20 or 21, going into one, trying to shop for my girlfriend for Christmas or whatever, her birthday, and having the associate who was really pretty, like almost model stuff. Not really, but just hold it up to her and say, the whole experience was like, oh my goodness. Because you don't have conversations about lingerie with strangers generally, but that's their job to have it. So, whatever. Go ahead. What you were going to say?
I was going to say, I do feel that the brand does feel to me a little dated in the current environment a little bit.
How so?
I mean, it seems to me very of that early 2000s era when that's like the way stuff was, when the Man Show was on TV and, the Girls Next Door show with Hugh Hefner in it, and that was that's like what sexiness and coolness was then, and I just don't know that brand has its finger on the pulse of the moment now, of like the pop culture moment.
But this is not. These are bedroom moments. These aren't out there. This isn't spring break attire they were making. Mm-hmm. This was intimate bedroom moments.
I know, but
this is soft, silky lingerie that feels good.
But I feel like the Victoria's Secret angels that I can name are still like all from then, like Adriana Lima and Giselle Bundchen, and like they're all like from that time. I don't know.
Well, maybe, but what the hell does Megan Rapinoe have to do?
She doesn't. I think it's a desperate attempt to kind of like save the brand.
And all of these other people, they're like accomplished women. Men don't find accomplishment to be an aphrodisiac. There are things that.
Well, yeah, but they're also like Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition is putting like whatever plus size people and trans people and whatever thing to try and do whatever they're doing, and I think. Because probably Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition, the paper copy, just doesn't sell as well as it once did. And they're just trying to do whatever to try and be relevant again. Because, I mean, would you go out now and buy a Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition?
No. I can't.
Would you have in 2003, possibly?
I wouldn't have bought it. The internet was around.
It was invented then. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just feel that cultural moment is a little bit past. I think people are more jaded now, I don't know.
I think that Victoria's Secret
Victoria's
is something
Secret's a
generally
great
for
brand,
or could be something for couples already. Either dating couples or married couples.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's not a luxury brand, right?
Well, I mean, so that's a good point.
It's not like fancy and expensive.
Well, hold on. So you make a good point, because back then there was Victoria's Secret or Fredericks of Hollywood.
Right.
And Fredericks was absolutely tacky. So compared to that, Victoria's Secret was absolutely classy. I don't know if it was a luxury brand. During all of those years when I was going there,
But it was
poor.
cool. Now it's a little tacky, I think.
Well, I don't know what young people do to be I assume young people not wear lingerie anymore?
I mean, they kind of do, but it's just different. It's lots of like bralettes and sort of.
What's a bralette?
It's I don't know. Google it. It's BRALETTE. It's like, but it's
Jeez,
less.
Google it. Wow.
I don't know how to explain it to you.
Bralettes.
But it's just like, I mean, not that style exactly anymore.
Yeah, but weren't there many? I don't know what's happening with these bralettes, but this is not a winning image search. But what's a silk thing called that you just wear that's one piece, like thing that goes from the top to the leg?
Like a teddy? Or...
Yes, that is that not a thing?
Not really. I don't think lingerie is a thing in the same way that it was.
Okay, well, how about this then? I've had an epiphone.
Okay.
How about this? How about lingerie maybe isn't a thing in the way that it was because
or it is, but it's like
because,
higher end stuff. I don't know.
Well, because like yoga pants.
What about like yoga pants?
I don't think we had in the 90s yoga pants. We had nothing that was that form-fitting. What? Uh-oh.
Right. So, but I mean, so that's a good point because, so-called athleisure wear is a really big category now that wasn't at that time, and that's really what that is.
Guys, where's your brother?
Is like Lululemon and these sort of ostensibly yoga clothes, but people just wear them around.
Okay.
Like these kind of, like, I think that's probably what's cooler and higher end now than like lingerie. Like, I don't know that people so much wear like push-up bras and like, I don't know.
Really?
It's just not the style so much anymore. I mean, I think obviously people still wear bras and people still dress like sexy, but it's just like it's different stuff, and it's like either higher end stuff or because it's sort of Victoria's Secret exists in this weird middle space where it's like expensive enough that you can get cheap stuff cheaper, but like if it doesn't have the coolness and the cachet anymore, then like maybe you go somewhere else for something fancier if it's like your special occasion thing.
Yeah.
That's my thought, but
well, yeah.
I haven't like analyzed their business, but I do think they're probably in a weird place business-wise because like I used to shop at Victoria's Secret all the time and I probably haven't.
What did you get?
I don't know, like bras, underwear, perfume, my tanning stuff that you hated.
Oh, that was awful. Awful.
My self-tanner. Yeah, I mean, all this, like
Sally,
I got tons of stuff
sorry,
there,
Cass,
but...
what is your brother doing?
But I
haven't. Okay, good.
But I haven't probably bought anything there in like 8 years, 10 years, maybe.
Okay. Well, neither of us. We've been in combat for the last 10 years, so neither of us have. This is not a subject we even talk about until right now, which is why we've got nothing to say really. Okay, so I do want to get to, before we get to the CRT stuff, kind of put a bow on the Biden trip overseas. I thought it was interesting that Jeff Zeleny, who's really a weak-minded guy, but kind of interesting, that Jeff Zeleny threw up his hands and said that something's wrong here with the way they shut us out when it comes to this guy.
But we have seen President Biden do that frequently. What we've not seen him do is answer questions like that without his aides screaming at him to stop. I have never seen a president, covering the last 4 of them, who is so protected by his aides in terms of often not wanting him to answer some questions.
Yeah, and you can see that.
I mean, conservatives have all been saying this for 5 months now.
Yes, and you can tell, why.
In a weekend interview, Vladimir Putin laughed at the suggestion that you had called him a killer. Is that still your belief, sir, that he is a killer? And I'll continue the trend if you don't mind of asking a second question. Do you believe if he does agree to cooperate, then what kind of a challenge do you find yourself in? How would you ever trust him And if Ronald Reagan said trust but verify, what do you say to Vladimir Putin?
To answer the first question, I'm laughing too. They actually, well, look, I mean, he has made clear that
in silence.
The answer is, I believe he is in the past.
Okay, so on one hand you've got that. So Kate Bedingfield is going to look at that and say, "This ain't good. This ain't good. Pull him." On the other hand, sometimes when he's asked a question, especially a question that hits him the wrong way, he loses it.
Why are you so confident he'll change his behavior, Mr. President?
Yeah, I'm not confident in changing behavior. What do you do all the time? So when did I say I was confident?
You said in the next 6 months you'll be able to determine.
What I said was, let's get it straight. I said what will change their behavior is if the rest of the world reacts to them and it diminishes their standing in the world. I'm not confident of anything. I'm just stating the fact.
But given his past behavior has not changed, and in that press conference after sitting down with you for several hours, he denied any involvement in cyber attacks. He downplayed human rights abuses. He even refused to say Alexei Navalny's name. So how does that account to a constructive meeting as President Putin?
You don't understand that. You're in the wrong business.
Is the summit with China next? Who we need to love? Who we need to love? Quickly, let's go. Quickly, cool.
Here they go. There's Bedingfield. Let's go, 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 go.
She's lucky she's not a guy. He would have been saying he wanted to take her outside.
Yeah, well, he's not afraid to call the women pony soldiers. Regardless of that, the CNN and the media, of course. First of all, Zelensky's piece, with the 10-second gap, Zelensky didn't even run. CNN didn't even cover their own reporter's question in the astonishing response they got. But CNN essentially, let us know what your takeaway was to be of the Biden European trip and summit with Putin.
Again, as Gloria said, so vintage Biden, because it is his understanding of human relationships and human condition that make him so fluid, as Jeff said, on the world stage.
There you go. Wow. It started, of course, with, according to them, a soaring speech.
Mm-hmm. At times, soaring. He's so fluid on the world stage. His understanding of the people around him. It's incredible. I mean, at this point, I'm not convinced he even knows who the people around him are at any given time.
I need this chair for our house.
You like that chair?
Oh, yeah. This is a power chair. This feels good.
It's hard to see on the camera, but Tom's in a little egg almost.
Yeah, it's nice. See it? It's a good chair. The one at the house is actually really flimsy. So, by the way, how am I going to do Jerry Callahan now, Alice? I got a morning gig, 10 to 2. Jerry, we usually at 7:50 or so.
It's tough.
Around there. I got to keep this going, right?
Tough.
On Jerry on
something out. I don't know.
On Jerry on with me. Okay, since we're in the area, Alice, and just below us on a clear day you can see Manhattan, let's just go to some Andrew Yang highlights. This guy continues to be likable when he answers questions.
Well, a lot of people didn't like this.
Right.
But...
Well, this is first. I'm going to start with the other one.
Oh, okay.
No, I'll start with that one. Okay. This is about violence in the city.
Yes, mentally ill people have rights, but you know who else have rights? We do. The people and families of the city. We have the right to walk the street and not fear for our safety because a mentally ill person is going to lash out at us.
Hear, hear, Andrew Yang. That was probably a very daring thing to say at an event like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
These debates are wacko liberal debates. These are the rent is too damn high debates. And good for him for using common sense and saying something that makes sense. And hopefully it resonates with the idiots in Manhattan. I mean, apart from the ones who work or have a summer place in Connecticut, who are not idiots, as a matter of fact, who are the best and brightest, Alice. But I mean, come on, and I mean, he's saying exactly the right thing. If he loses being himself, I'll be proud of him.
Well, yeah. The thing is, I mean, and he sort of issued an explanation for this, but he didn't really apologize, which is good. Saying that this was in response to a question about there's been all these hate crimes against Asian people in New York. And they're saying that like half of them statistically have been, a mentally ill homeless person or whatever, that mental illness has been a factor in about half of the anti-Asian hate crimes that have happened. And so, it becomes a question like, at what point is it not kind to the mentally ill person either to have them living on the streets accosting people?
Right. What are we doing here? Yes, you're not doing them any favors. And you're making the streets unlivable. You're having people flee now. They used to say...
And people are saying, like, well, mentally ill people are more likely to be the victims of crimes, et cetera, et cetera. And that's all true and fine and great, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the specific subset of mentally ill people who are committing crimes that are related to the fact that they're mentally ill because they're not here in reality with us and they're just attacking random people on the street. And them being mentally ill isn't a reason why they shouldn't not be in that situation in the first place, both for their own safety and for everybody else's. And, I don't know if he said that the best way, like, yeah, mentally ill people matter, but so do us normals. I don't know if that was exactly the best phrasing, but I think it does effectively make the point. So maybe it is good. I don't know.
Yeah, well, but at the same time, what about stopping Asian hate? A lot of these people who have been just decking Asians in both coasts have been whack jobs. And we're not doing, like you said, we're not doing anybody any favors. David Rednow used to say that deinstitutionalization of starting in the 60s essentially gave homeless people the right to freeze to death in the winter.
Yeah, it's really true. It's very, very sad. And you're seeing it take over not only like LA and San Francisco now are just like overrun, but also Austin, and the cities keep pouring money into the problem without solving it. And it's really like one of these problems that, not all homeless people, hashtag, but, but there are a significant number of homeless people that are going to continue to be in terrible situations, addicted to drugs or severely mentally ill and not seeking treatment and all these things. And it's not that these things haven't been made available to them. The beds are available and the help is available and the healthcare is available because these are like really, really liberal places where they are trying to make all this stuff available. But there comes a point where it's...
I'm documenting it, Alice, for posterity is our attempt to try to have a...
Some people are not going to accept help unless they're made to accept help, and so it's a choice. It's a choice as a society to have people choosing to live under all your bridges in cardboard boxes.
Yeah. And also...
And it's not because a lot of those people don't have other options. We talked about the Abigail Schreier piece, too, of all the young people showing up in shelters because, they want to transition genders and their parents don't support them.
Yeah. No.
So these are people that are choosing this lifestyle intentionally.
Some who have the faculties to even process. Definitely. No doubt about that. And I knew a guy who was homeless for a while. A lot of guys who are homeless. When you're a concierge, a lot of the ticket scalpers, well, this is how it used to be when I was a concierge back in the 90s, the ticket scalpers would know a lot of the homeless guys because they'd use them to wait in line to get Red Sox tickets or other sports tickets. When they'd release a bunch of tickets, you're only one pair per person. They'd take a homeless guy and say, hey, go up there and grab me tickets, whatever. But a lot of the homeless guys wouldn't stay in the shelters because most of the shelters, at least at that time, you weren't allowed to drink or have drugs on you. So it's like, no, what's this? It's a nice summer day. I'm homeless and I got a handle of vodka here. Right. I'm not, but there's a lot of reasons for it. But good on Yang. Did I play both or just one?
Just one.
No, I played both. No, you were dealing with kids when I played the other one.
Oh.
Yeah, we played the. No, you're right. I didn't. Okay. They also asked him what the worst moment he had on the campaign trail was, and here is his answer.
Mr. Yang.
Consoling a parent who'd lost his son. I'm a dad of two boys, and I just imagined myself in his shoes. Comforting him it felt like a blessing, but it was a very tough experience.
Ms. Morales, your worst moment on the campaign?
Pure Yang. He spoke like people do. Talk like people, which is why I like him, regardless of any of his wacky theories and beliefs. The guy is just a normal guy, and I like him around. It's like you have growing up in school and college and this and that. You've got one person that you want at every party who makes it better,
right?
And he's a force for positivity. I like him. Not gonna lie. Okay. All right, Alice, you ready to dive in?
Dive in.
We're gonna dive into the full onslaught, and there was a local media person who just. They're out there now saying that since we're pushing fully for critical race theory now, and there's a pushback in some states, that we're simply denying the existence of history. Oh. And because we are uncomfortable, mostly people who look like you and me are uncomfortable because of guilt, because of the history of oppression and colonialism that we still benefit from. Oh. And that's what's going on, and that's why we don't want to teach critical race theory, and a lot of people have been pointing to Ashley Shackelford. Do you remember her? Mm-mm. She's the woman who a couple of years ago was really famous for teaching critical race theory to a group of people while wearing a probably ill thought out outfit. She has, I would say, my build. Okay. And decided to possibly wear something from Victoria's Secret. Okay. Anyway, but that's fine. That's fine. That's not the biggest part of the problem. It's what she said. And this is the kind of thing. This is the kind of thing that you've got coming down the line with critical race theory. Now, it may not be as raw as this. It may be sewn or embedded into another narration, a narrative, or storyline. But this is the real uncut stuff. This is what they mean.
All white people are racist. So I put this up because I really want any white person in the room to know up front that this is what we're dealing with, that it's not going to be this coddling of white tears and what that looks like. We're not going to discuss, maybe some of us have worked it out. No, you're always going to be racist, actually. So even when you're on your path to trying to figure out how to be a better human being, because I believe that white people are born into not being human, like that actually instead of people of color and black folks being dehumanized, that actually everyone is dehumanized off rip within white supremacy, that y'all are born into a life to not be human, and that's what y'all are taught to do, to be demons. So in this particular way, white people are all racist.
So there you go. So there's a bit of the uncut stuff. And I understand if you're a crazy race hustler and someone like her and you're a racist or maybe a black supremacist, she probably is. Monica Cannon Grant up in Boston is as well.
Yeah, I mean, or Nick Cannon.
Right.
The guy talking about, like, our lack of melanin makes us, like, quite human.
Yes, and she's saying demons and this and that. I understand. You're just a craven,
racist,
sick bigot. That's fine. And it's, I can take it on its, what you see is what you get, and that's fine. But when you're a progressive white woman and you hear this, and for some reason you need to be broken down, break me down and punish me and build me back up, and as a subservient serf who you can, throttle if I do something wrong, which is a weird fantasy going on here to want to live in, but they're living in it all over the place, Alice.
I know.
These are not one-offs. We know people, otherwise intelligent people, who have at least a little bit of this. Some people have a lot of this. And this is another one of these young lecturers named Jamie Gosling, who's telling us, no, there's no doubt about it. You are wretched if you are white.
Got this comment, and newsflash, he thinks you're a colonizer also. I got a newsflash for you. That's fine, I understand. I am a colonizer, and I don't expect anyone to trust me when I'm wearing this skin color.
I had hoped most historic colonizers hadn't had a vocal burn. I am a colonizer.
I'm wearing the enemy's uniform. People who look like me have hurt everyone who doesn't for hundreds of years. So I think it's unreasonable for me to expect that kind of trust from anyone.
You probably don't know this, but I've been studying the French Revolution recently. And people who look like her have been hurting people who look like her for hundreds, thousands of years.
And people who don't look like her have been hurting people who don't look like her, and people who look like her, and people who don't look like her in other different ways. And, that's human history. The more history you study, it turns out, if you don't just sit around and cherry pick examples so you can feel guilty about them, if you actually just study history to try and learn stuff, then what you discover is that lots of different types of people have been really terrible to lots of different types of people for tens of thousands of years.
Correct. You're right. And I understand to simply decide that the image of a knee on a guy's neck in Minneapolis is the sum total of the equation that is a race. That if that's what you take that snapshot and don't think it through, and it's just a one top level analyzation, then okay, fine. Then you've got your worldview done for you. But if you have any kind of curiosity, intellectual curiosity, and real yearning for any kind of truth, then maybe you'd want to dig deeper. I know it can be some work, but you should want to. Unless it's not about the truth, it's about feelings. And it's about feeling this high, this little hit of, what's it called? You have a hit of estrogen. What's it called? When you Endorphins. When you throttle yourself and get out there and say, I just admitted that I was a colonizer and I feel good about that.
People can weaponize my whiteness at any time. It must be weird to go around thinking stuff like that. Like,
yeah,
wow, my whiteness has just been hurting people all over the planet.
Yeah, I mean, like, how do you, if you're her, how do you go buy a sandwich? The symbolism, the incredible amount of horrific and spiritual pain that must be wisping around you constantly. The transacting. What if you transacting the guy who brings you up as a black person? Oh my God! Here we go again, and he's serving you right now. And if you're being too nice to him, you're being a savior to him. Yeah. And then who did the labor of the sandwich? And actually, the sandwich is a Cuban sandwich. Jesus,
yeah. I mean, I don't know how people got through their day. And honestly, I don't hang out with any white supremacists, but I have never met anyone who talks about their own whiteness as much as these people do.
No.
I've never met a normal person who's like, wow, the whiteness in this room, it's just stifling.
Yes, all these masters.
I have to interrogate my
all these
privilege.
masters of post-racism are the most centered on race in the world.
Yeah,
in the world.
Never seen anything like it. It's incredible. I mean, because you and I were both raised that, treating race as this important factor in our daily social interactions was a negative thing to do.
Yes.
So, I don't know what future they think they're aiming towards, but I what's the end game here? What's the goal? What's the perfect society in their view?
I don't know, because
it sure feels like they want white people put down.
Yeah, but Jamie Gosling wants white people put down.
Yeah, I know. So what is that? What she wants? She wants white people to be
Well, for somebody like her, I think that he wants you to do the pool right now. I don't know. Hold on, Cyril. We're listening to Jamie Gosling.
I mean,
Mozart, I think.
As hard as I can read Malcolm X every day, and I'm still going to make racist mistakes and hurt people I care about. And even if I don't hurt them, somebody else around me can weaponize my whiteness at any time and hurt more people. So usually when people call me a colonizer, it's an invitation for me to reflect on my actions, and it's not hostile. And even if it is hostile, people have every right to be hostile, so I'm just going to be a good friend, and I'm going to be patient, and I'm going to understand. Night.
She's not technically a colonizer.
She's never colonized anything. She's living on stolen land, Tom.
She's also living on land that was that was under the fist of an empire.
He wants to go to the fishy place again.
We
were at the aquarium.
Yeah, the aquarium. All right, before we go, speaking of race relations, Alice, you know that the Republicans are trying to bar blacks from voting in every state. They're trying to, I think, poll tax is happening at every state. And, in fact, the legislation is trying to take sustenance away from people trying to vote. You know, you can't have a drink of water within 7 miles of any polling place now,
right,
etc. So, and one of the things we've been told historically is that voter ID is the leading form of voter suppression that Republicans push perpetually. They want voter ID because it's impossible for some people to get identification, and that way you'll suppress the black vote, and the Republicans can take over the world and rule as the colonizers that they always wanted to be. But then Stacey Abrams was asked about Joe Manchin, who's making some concessions, and she's asked about voter ID, something that she has railed against.
Is that a compromise you could support?
Oh, wait, hold on. Let me just make sure.
You could accept this compromise, what Joe Manchin laid out, even if voter ID was part of it.
That's one of the fallacies of Republican talking points that have been deeply disturbing. No one has ever objected to having to prove who you are to vote. It's been part of our nation's history since the inception of voting. What has been problematic is the type of restrictive ID that we've seen pop up. In South Dakota, where Native Americans were told that they had to provide IDs with addresses the state refused to provide. We have states where students are not allowed to use their student IDs, but you can use your gun license. The point is simply that the restrictions on the forms of ID should meet the needs of the people. And what he is proposing makes sense because it says what we've had in this country for so many decades, which is that people can prove their identity in various ways, but we should not narrow the playing field so much that we push voters out of participation simply because...
Yeah, okay. So now she's
no one's ever objected to it.
No.
Not only is she for it, but literally
she wrote the book on it.
Literally nobody has ever objected to voter ID.
All right.
Which is interesting because some states, including ours, still don't have voter ID.
Alice, but before we go, I want to hit this tweet by Razib Khan.
Okay.
That somebody flagged. You or me. What is his deal? He is geneticist, find me Clubhouse. Okay. He says, some of my friends, I think he's of Indian descent, maybe. He says,
some kind of South Asian. Yeah.
He says, some of my friends get annoyed or angry when I say this, but most of the people in this world are not black, sub-Saharan African mostly, or white, European mostly. Reducing all of history to the American black-white historical axis is pretty dumb on the merits, but is also offensive. A lot of people won't want to say this for fear of offending the gentry, liberals who dispense approval and funds, but I don't give a bleep, obviously. I get your attempt at propaganda here, and I take personal offense, as my ancestors are erased from human history as agents. Also, don't try to lecture me about history. I've forgotten more than you know. Okay, so there you go. But anyway, that's an interesting point, isn't it?
Yeah.
That European whites and sub-Saharan African blacks are not the majority of people in the planet, but we're acting as if we're the two, everybody else are extras.
Well, and what's weird is because American culture is so pervasive globally, is we've now exported our black-white racial relations thing to every other country as part of our culture. They all held George Floyd protests, like in Germany, even though, black-white tensions have never been a thing there. They've had other problems with white supremacists, but not anti-blackness per se. But I mean, that's what we're seeing here, is this erasure of all other ethnic groups. This is what we talked about with what was happening at Stanford, where they told the Jewish people that the swastikas weren't about anti-Semitism, they were about anti-blackness and not to distract with their Jewish privilege. Or even what we're seeing happen with Asian people. Like the attacks on Asians, it's all stop Asian hate until
this
it's
is
not.
Coming apart.
This is about to fall apart. But you guys get where I'm going with this because you've heard me rail on this a bunch of times. We are going to go visit the hotel pool.
Okay, they're knocking us off the air. Sorry about that.
You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on our locals page if you want more trip updates from our trip. You can also find us on Patreon. We're going to be doing a bonus show there this weekend on Sunday. But in general, you can always find us in our regular 5 shows a week for free on Twitter at Burn Barrel Pod, Facebook.com/Burn Barrel Podcast, Burn Barrel Podcast at gmail.com, YouTube, and everywhere else you like to listen to podcasts. We appreciate it so much, guys. We'll see you soon.